On the campaign trail, President Trump said he'd take revenge against his perceived enemies if he won the election. His supporters, he emphasized, could count on him to be their retribution. Yesterday's court-authorized search of one of his most vocal critics suggests promises made, promises kept as the retribution presidency takes shape. This time it's former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton under investigation after FBI agents searched his home and office as part of a probe into the handling of classified information. And while Trump claims ignorance over the search, Vice President J.D. Vance detailed the administration's plans.
We're in the very early stages of an ongoing investigation into John Bolton. I will say we're going to let that investigation proceed. What I can tell you is that unlike the Biden DOJ and the Biden FBI, our law enforcement agencies are going to be driven by law and not by politics. And so if we think that Ambassador Bolton has committed a crime, of course, eventually prosecutions will come.
Joining us now is George Conway, conservative lawyer and president of the Society of the Rule of Law. He's also the co-host of the George Conway Explains It All podcast. George was also in the neighborhood as the events unfolded. So, George, did you get a tip about this? How did you know that it was happening is my first question. And then my second question is, what did you see in terms of the volume of what was being, taken out of John Bolton's home?
By the time I found out about it basically because Kash Patel had been talking about it and people were talking about it on social media. I live 10 minutes away. So I was there by 8 o'clock. But by the time I got to John Bolton's house, there was already a crowd of media and neighbors and onlookers there. So I just found out about it like everyone else. It's just that I know where he lives because I live around here and I've driven my daughters to and from their friend's house by driving by his house.
And let's show some footage of when the boxes were taken from Mar-a-Lago, and then what we just were showing you some footage of John Bolton's house. Is there any correlation between the volume of what's being taken versus what's actually there?
Yeah, we have no idea whether there's anything in there that is ultimately could provide evidence against John Bolton. I mean, I'm sure that they're pulling out anything that would be related to his work at the White House, and then they're going to have to review it to see whether there's anything in there that would constitute evidence of a crime. So I don't think that there's going to be, I don't think that the volume of material taken out of the house is necessarily probative of anything because they don't have time to read everything at the house. They're just collecting things that fit possibly the general description and as what happened at Mar-a-Lago, and then they have to focus in on what materials could possibly be relevant. I doubt that John Bolton, being the careful lawyer that he is and the fastidious person that he is, had anything like what Donald Trump had in his basement, and then what Donald Trump had, he then lied about, refused to give back to the government, then tried to destroy security camera footage about when he had people move the documents to hide from the FBI. I don't think we're going to have any evidence anywhere near like that.
George, can I ask you what your thoughts were on hearing Vice President Vance in that interview there use words like "we're conducting an hour" in reference to an investigation? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the Oval Office, the president and vice president, were at least supposed to pretend like they weren't directly interfering in law enforcement operations in the United States.
That book has been thrown out. We're operating under a new set of rules here, where we have political prosecutions that are directed, to please the president of the United States, where the incoming FBI, the new FBI director, who has zero serious experience in law enforcement and none at the FBI, put out coloring books that praised the Donald Trump when he was, under indictment, and then had enemies lists. He has enemies lists that John Bolton is on. So this is a totally new environment that we have and totally new rules here. There's no serious pretense here that they're abiding by the rule of law, contrary to what Mr. Vance is saying. This is all about showmanship and retribution. And this is just an abuse of power, like so much else we've been seeing from the Trump administration.
Yeah, to your point, George, I actually want to play for you and our viewers this soundbite of President Trump back in 2020 and some comments he made about John Bolton, really expressing his feelings there when he released his book. Take a listen to this.
In terms of Bolton, he broke the law.
It's really treasonous, okay, what he did.
He took classified information and he published it. I believe that he's a criminal.
Have you been briefed on the FBI raid of John Bolton?
No, I don't know about it. I saw it on television this morning. I'm not a fan of John Bolton.
So, there may be people out in this country who want to think that the FBI and the Department of Justice are apolitical, even in this current climate. I know that's obviously ludicrous, but for people who are out there who may not remember that soundbite of Donald Trump, explain to them why a soundbite like that, a comment like that from the president nearly 5 years ago, setting his sights directly on John Bolton, calling him treasonous, referring to him as criminal, would be a factor in the way that the FBI is behaving today.
Well, I mean, look, it shows the motivation. And if he actually the president of the United States isn't supposed to be making comments like that about a possible criminal investigation without any basis for it. But the fact that he said that several years ago, the fact that the Justice Department at that point did not conduct a criminal investigation at a time when the Justice Department, led by even a partisan such as Bill Barr, told him no on occasions. That tells you that there was no there. And in fact, as I recall, there was some civil litigation about the pre-publication process for John Bolton's book. And the head of the civil division, the guy who took the job that I was going to be nominated for until I decided I had wanted to have nothing to do with the Trump administration, he resigned because he was being asked to do things that were really just unjustified in light of John Bolton's cooperation with the pre-publication process. Truth of the matter is, what Donald Trump was upset about was not that there was classified information in there, but the fact that John Bolton, in great detail, portrayed Donald Trump as a chump and a fool and basically a know-nothing about foreign policy and completely unsuited for the office of president of the United States. And John Bolton has stuck to that. I mean, he learned a lot about Donald Trump in his time at the White House, and none of it was good.
All right, George Conway, greatly appreciate you joining us tonight and your thoughts on all of this.